All right, we are live. Hey, how is it going? Lee Hayward here with the Total Fitness Bodybuilding video chat for Friday, November 19th. And hopefully you're having yourself a good day, and I'm looking forward to having a chat with you. So the way these video chats work, if you are new to the chat, first off, I want to welcome you. But I'm going to be hanging out here now for the next hour-ish, thereabouts, and basically just having a live Q&A. So anything that you would like to discuss with regards to fitness and nutrition, any specific challenges that you're having when it comes to your workouts or anything like that, when building muscle, losing fat, whatever, feel free to type those questions and topics of discussion into our chat window there to the side. And I'll do the best that I can to help you out over the course of our video chat today. And as you're logging in here now, let me know who's tuning in. If you can hear me loud and clear, if this is coming through, please let me know. Hopefully it is. Hopefully it is coming through loud and clear. Actually, I forgot to plug in my external mic, so I'm relying on the internal mic of the laptop today. Normally, whoops. Normally I plug in this one. I got my external mic, which is better audio quality, but hopefully the internal mic on the laptop is working well today. So if it sounds a little different than normal, that's probably why, because I'm just brain fart. I'm looking like, here it is in front of me. I forgot to plug in the freaking microphone. Whoops. So I'm not going to do it now, because if I do it, it'll screw up the audio settings for the chat, and you probably won't be able to hear anything, and I'll have to turn it off and turn it back on again. So if you can hear me, let me know. And I think it is. Okay, Peter's joining in. Deval's joining in. Good. Says it's all good. So hopefully the audio is coming through and you can hear me and see me, and that's all that matters. There we go. All right. So how are things going? How are things going on your end? And where are you tuning in from? Let me know. What part of the world are you tuning in from? What time is it in your local area? I'm in Newfoundland, Canada, and as you can see, it's pitch black outside, right? We're in the dark of winter here now, and it's just shortly after 6 o'clock here. So gotta love the. Well, I don't love the short days. I really miss miss the long days of summer, but there's not much you can do about it, right? Just deal with it. All right, what we got? We got Peter joining in from Philadelphia, Deval joining in from Winnipeg in Canada, Niels joining in from over in the Philippines. Awesome. We have Lee joining in, Lee Dunnigan over in the UK. We got Steve from over in the UK. Dario's joining in. Awesome. Welcome, welcome. Glad to have you joining in, gentlemen. All right. So again, as if you're brand new to these video chats and you never tuned into one before, I want to welcome you. It's always nice to have new people joining in. And again, the way this works is I'm going to be answering questions that you have with regards to fitness, nutrition. So anything that you want to post, feel free to do so. And if I can help you out, I certainly will. And if not, then I'll try and point you in the right direction to somebody who can. So, well, so we've got AJ joining in. We have Michael joining in. Who else joining in? Let me know. Give us a type or a thumbs up into the chat window there. All right. So one thing that I want to address that I just found out about this, like literally before we got on this video chat here. I just found out, like, one of my personal coaching students, Jeff, who I've done videos with him, Jeff Samatero, we've done videos together, and he's made an amazing transformation following the whole Muscle After 40 Blueprint program. He recently let us know through our private VIP coaching group that he just got diagnosed with the COVID, right? And unfortunately, I mean, it's a frustrating thing. And what I want to do now in this is just kind of share some insights that I have about how do you deal with the recovery process if you are unfortunate enough to get this, or if you've had it. And for that matter of fact, if you have had it, let us know in the chat window how it's affected you and your workouts and how the whole recovery process went. Because I personally haven't had it before. So, I mean, I'm only speaking from what I've read and from talking to people who've had it. But from an athletic point of view, you really want to be cautious with your workouts if you have had COVID and you're recovering from it, because obviously your immune system is weakened at this stage of the game, and you don't want to be pushing yourself with high intensity exercise too much too soon, because it could possibly cause some damage in that process, right? You need to have a patience when it comes to the recovery process. And from what I've heard from just talking to other fitness professionals and coaches, they usually recommend at least a month after, like after you've recovered, give yourself a month of just easing your way into exercise again, especially when it comes to cardiovascular exercise. Like no pushing yourself, doing, high intensity interval training and stuff like that, where you're really pushing at full gas and trying to, max out, because that is going to tap into your, your cardiovascular system, which is already compromised, and placing excess stress on that can just probably hinder the recovery process and may do some damage in doing so. So you want to be very cautious in the recovery process and start off very easy and just literally go through the motions. If you, and this kind of advice would apply if you've gotten sick in general and you're coming back to the gym after any type of layoff, but especially if you have, the COVID situation and you've had your immune system compromised with that, you definitely don't want to be pushing yourself too hard too soon. So it was a bit of a shock and unfortunate when I heard that, because I know Jeff has been a big help over on our VIP coaching group. Like he helps out a lot of the newer members as well, and he's been a big supporter. So I was frustrated when I heard that, because he was on a roll, making some really good gains, like in his all-time best shape, and then this is kind of like a swift kick to the to the what, right? Have this hit him just all of a sudden. So it's a bit of a setback for sure. But the main thing is it's usually not that big of a deal if you're in good health overall. For a lot of people, it's not much more than just overcoming a cold or a flu. Like that's, if it was any other year, most of the times people who get this usually say, hey, if any other year I would have thought I just had the cold or I had the flu and, no big deal. So hopefully it's just that case with Jeff, and I'm assuming it will be, fingers crossed, because he's in good health and he's been taking care of himself, diet, exercise, avoiding, negative habits and all that kind of stuff. So I think he should be okay with it. But it's frustrating from a fitness point of view, especially when you're on a roll and making good progress, to have to now scale things back. And obviously you don't want to be pushing yourself with high intensity cardio or high intensity strength training or anything like that that's going to compromise your immune system any further. And then in that recovery process, literally go through the motions, like start back just like you were a beginner coming back to the gym from day one. Like literally go through the motions and build it up gradually, week by week, stopping short of failure, stopping short of exhaustion. Like literally just go through the movement patterns and not placing a lot of stress. And then week by week, as you're starting to feel better, you can gradually build up that intensity. And over the course of several weeks, build yourself back up to what you were doing previously. But do not be in a rush to try and jump back too much too soon, because that could literally hinder the process. You may cause some damage in the meantime, and we don't want to do that. So if anyone has any feedback to share about that, like real world experience, hey, I'd be more than happy to share that during the chat. So please, if you do have any real world experience with it, feel free to chime into our video chat window there and let us know. All right, I'm going to jump right in now and see if we have any questions coming through, and I believe we do. Let's see. Dario's got a victory to share, and it's a good one. He says, this morning I hit a personal best of 20 consecutive pull-ups with good form at 190 pounds body weight. Just wanted to share. Well, my friend, that deserves a round of applause. That is an impressive feat of strength, and I got to be honest, I've never done 20 pull-ups myself. I've never hit that, so congratulations to you. That's a huge feat of strength right there, and not many people can do 20 pull-ups, and not just 20 pull-ups, but 20 good form pull-ups, because in the CrossFit world, pull-up technique is kind of, they're shooting for the numbers, and I'm not saying that they're not working hard and everything else, because they certainly are, but the quality is usually compromised, especially when you're doing these kipping pull-ups where you kind of look like a fish flopping out of water while you're pulling yourself up over the bar. But if you're doing 20 pull-ups with strict form, and I mean that's an impressive feat of strength by any standard. So again, if I had it, I would tip it to you right now. That's quite impressive. We have AJ joining in. Welcome, AJ. And Mike, I think I already acknowledged these guys earlier. Okay, AJ's got a question here. He says, What advice would you give on strengthening your deadlift? I feel like my deadlift is lacking, and I think it's my hamstrings. Would you suggest Romanian deadlifts, good mornings, Nordic curls, etc.? All right, great question. And there's a lot to that. There's a lot to unpack. One thing is how you're training the deadlift to begin with. When I was competing in powerlifting, and I used to follow a lot of the methods of the West Side Barbell school back in the day. Like I've got the old West Side Barbell VHS tapes, Louis Simmons and Dave Tate, and like all the guys made. Like I'm talking like before online video, before DVDs, back in VHS days. Like I'm sure there's probably people watching this now who've never even played a VHS tape before, right? But back in those days, right? Back in the VCR tape days, that's when I had Louis' West Side Barbell powerlifting tapes, and I studied those things. I mean, I literally wore the tapes out. I watched them over and over and over again, and just trying to absorb it all in. And I got a lot of value from it. But that's what I used to follow a lot of back in the day. And one of the things that they recommended, and I found it was very powerful for myself, and I hit my personal best deadlift using this style of training, single rep deadlifts. Like the deadlift is one of those exercises where doing multiple reps isn't really necessary if your goal is to strengthen your 1 rep max. Like when you're doing bench presses and squats, like there is benefit to doing multiple reps with those, because the way those exercises are, when you start the exercise, you lower it down and you can get that rebound out of the bottom. You have the loading of the exercise, and then you can rebound out. The deadlift is literally that. It's a dead lift, right? You're starting from a dead weight, no momentum, no movement. It's not like you start from the top and then bounce out of the bottom or anything like that. It's a dead lift. And doing 1 single rep sets is very powerful for increasing your 1 rep max. And what I would literally do is I would do single rep sets. So pyramid your way up and do multiple sets of single reps. And I found that was very powerful. And I have an old blog post over on my website covering a 7-week deadlift program, a progressive 7-week deadlift program. Let me just see if I can find that for you here now. In fact, if you do, I'm going to do a test here now. If you do a Google search for Lee Hayward deadlift program, you'll probably find it. It's probably going to be the first, let me just double check here now. It should be the first search, or at least it was for me. Whether it is for you or not, I don't know. But I'm going to post a link to it here. It's leehayward.com/blog/deadlifting-101. But I'll literally type the link into our video chat there, so you can go check that out. There we go. So I'm going to type it into our chat window. There. Follow that. That right there is a complete 7-week program to increase your 1 rep max deadlift. And I think that would certainly put you on the right track if you haven't already done so. Now, assuming you're already training your deadlift in a progressive fashion, and maybe you are following a program similar to that, or maybe you're not. I really don't know what you're doing. When it comes to the deadlifts, the major muscle groups involved, it's basically the entire posterior chain, the entire back of the body, right? So, I mean, your spinal erectors, your hips, your glutes, your hamstrings, your traps, your grip. Grip is a huge limiting factor as well. Like if you can't hold onto the bar, then you're not going to deadlift it. So all these things come into play. I mean, those are huge elements of the deadlift. So strengthening your grip, whether it's with heavy grips, hand grippers, or just regular grip training, I mean, that's a huge asset to having a strong deadlift. And then, of course, you need to strengthen the whole, posterior chain, your spinal erectors, your traps, your hips, your glutes, your hamstrings, all those muscles. And there's a lot of exercises you can do. One of the best that I found for strengthening the back of the body, and it's an exercise you can do quite frequently, is hyperextensions. I love hyperextensions. I try to do them on a regular basis because it's one of those exercises you can do it frequently, and it gets a lot of blood flow and circulation throughout those muscles of the posterior chain. And not just for increasing your deadlift, but just for overall back health in general. Because when you do it, I mean, you're strengthening all the weak links for a lot of people. And I find it's a very therapeutic exercise as well. Like when I'm doing hyperextensions on a regular basis, like there's no aches or pains in the lower back and that area. I mean, it's great from stretching as well as contracting the muscles. And if you have access to like the 45-degree angle hyperextension bench, you can use that. If you have the horizontal one, you can use that. At the gym I train at, Platinum Health and Fitness, they have both. So when I'm doing them, I usually I'll do a set on the 45 and I'll do a set on the horizontal, and I alternate them set for set like that. But that's a phenomenal exercise, and it works all the same major muscles as the deadlift. So that's one that I would really recommend incorporating into your workouts. And like say, you can do that throughout the week. Like, I mean, you don't have to have it do it only on back day or whatever. Like I would very often do that as like a finisher to most of my workouts, like throw in a few sets of hyperextensions at the end of a workout as just a great way to finish off a training session. So, I mean, that's another great exercise. And another one that is also beneficial indirectly is rowing, especially like the cardio rowing machine. Like I'm a big fan of the Concept 2 ergometer rower. In fact, I actually bought one for my home gym just recently. So, I mean, that's a great assistant exercise as well. Works the entire back of the body. Now, granted, it is a cardio conditioning exercise, but it still helps you get blood flow and circulation, and you are still working all those major muscles that come into play. And I mean, a strong body is strong from the back, right? Like you see people who are strong, whether that's strongman, powerlifters, whatever, bodybuilders, like someone who's strong in the back, like they're strong all over, because that is the chain that connects everything. So that's another great exercise you can do. I mean, from a conditioning and cardiovascular benefit, but it also has some secondary benefits to help improve your overall back strength and conditioning as well. So that's another great exercise, in addition to following that deadlift program that I shared with you. So give those tips a try, and I think that'll certainly help move you in the right direction to hitting a new personal best deadlift. We have Deval joining in, and he says, started watching Lee Hayward way back in 2010 or 2011 when I started bodybuilding. Good to see you after a long time. Awesome. Glad to see that you're still sticking around. I mean, yeah, I mean, I literally started this, well, way back before 2010. I started my very first website back in 1997. I was still in college at the time, and my first website, which was Lee Hayward's Total Fitness Bodybuilding, was actually a school project of mine, because I was doing computer studies and I was doing a web development course, developing websites on HTML, right? The classic old HTML websites when we had dial-up internet through telephone modems. And I launched my very first bodybuilding website back in 1997. And at the time, it was like literally one of the first bodybuilding websites out there. This was before the days of even bodybuilding.com, before YouTube, before Google, before all that stuff. And that's how I got started back in the early days of the internet. Like the internet as we know it only became legal in 1996. And I started my website in 1997. Before then, it was like a government network, right? It was a military network. It wasn't even a public internet as we know it. So, yeah, times have changed. But it's a passion project for sure, and I'm still doing it because it's a passion project of mine. All right, we have Peter joining in. So I just started my fitness journey. I was 226 pounds when I first started. Now I'm about 207 to 205 on a good day. Congratulations. That's a huge jump in the right direction. I mean, heck, losing 20 pounds-ish. I mean, you're certainly on the right track. So congratulations with that, Peter. I don't know if you have any other questions or you just wanted to share it, but either way, thumbs up. We got Lee joining in. Lee Dunnigan says, I'm competing in my first strongman competition tomorrow. I'm only doing one event, the log lift, but I've been hit with some last-minute nerves. Do you have any tips to relax? Well, I've never done a strongman competition. I've done a powerlifting competition before, and it's kind of similar. But if you've trained properly and you know what you can do in training, then you should be able to carry that over to the platform. Now, in my case, I've had a lot of experience in competition before I actually did powerlifting, because I was doing bodybuilding competition. Now, granted, bodybuilding competition and powerlifting competition are like chalk and cheese, but the idea of competing of putting yourself out there to be able to hit your peak and perform on a given day when called upon. That's the challenge, because one of the problems a lot of people have is they may be able to hit a certain lift or perform in the gym when there's no pressure and they do it on a good day and everything else. But to be able to channel and focus that for a competition, it takes some skill and it takes some experience. And the first thing that I would say, like, this is your first competition. So don't have any grand expectations. Like, it's your first time. Go out there and just take it in and realize this is a learning experience, and just enjoy it. Like, just try and enjoy it and learn from it. I mean, yeah, you're going to be a bit nervous and everything else because you don't know what to expect and all that. But you got to realize, like, there's no expectations on you either. You're a rookie competitor. You're a newbie, a novice. So, like, just go out there and enjoy it and learn from it. If you bomb out in your first competition, like, I know it's going to suck in the moment, but use it as a learning experience, and then just realize, hey, you improve for your next one. Like, I remember the first time I did a bodybuilding competition. Like, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was nervous and everything else, and I went out there and I got my ass kicked and blah, blah, blah. But I learned from it, and I made some amazing friends and connections through there, and I used that to fuel my motivation to improve for my next competition. And then what I learned from the next competition, I used it to improve for the following competition. And it's always this constant learning process. Like, you're never done. Like, there's always another level. There's always something else you want to achieve. So the first competition, the goal is just to do it, and just realize, you know what, you're probably going to get your ass kicked. There's probably going to be people who are way better, and that's cool. Like, don't overthink it. Just go out there, enjoy it, learn from it, and then take what you learn and apply it to your next competition. Like, I know, in a way, I can kind of relate to this, because this past September, I took on a new competition, something I'd never done before. I competed in our provincial road cycling championships. Now, for those of you who follow me, like, over on Facebook, I sometimes share this, or if you're following me on Strava by chance, over the last several years, I've really gotten more serious into cycling. It's like a new passion of mine, a new hobby, a new sport, and I really like it. I love the challenge of it. I love the adventure and all that. And I decided to compete in our provincial road cycling championships. So I competed, and I got my ass kicked. But I learned a lot. I learned a lot about me. I learned a lot about my training, and I enjoyed the experience, and I made some great friends in the process. And I came away with more stuff that I can use to help make me a better cyclist. So even though I got my ass kicked, like, who cares? Like, I knew going into there I was going to get my ass kicked, right? And I did. But I learned so much from the experience, and I enjoyed it. And again, the friendships and the camaraderie and the connections you make by doing stuff like that, I mean, that's invaluable. So look at this as a personal growth experience, and not getting hung up on the competition and where you place, or having any ego expectations. Like, leave the ego at the door and just enjoy the moment, and whatever happens, it's going to happen for a reason and a purpose, and use it and learn from it. That's the best advice I can give you. Right? Just go through. I mean, yeah, you're going to be nervous and everything else, but just embrace it. Like, almost look at it almost like you could from a third person perspective. Like, almost like if you could get outside your body and just say, hey, look at this nervous newbie competing in his first strongman competition, right? Learn from it, go from it, and then take what you learn and then apply it to your next one. All right, moving on. Let's see what else we got. Neil is joining in. See, Neil is asking, what are your thoughts about sled work? I'm planning to add them to my off days, but I don't have access to it. Any alternatives? I have a simple home gym, and I'm currently lean bulking. Sled work. Dragging a sled is a cool alternative to a lot of, like, it's a cool addition to a workout. And I used to do some sled work back in the day, especially when I was training for powerlifting. I haven't done it in recent years, partially because I don't have a sled, and the gym that I train at doesn't have those either. So I haven't really focused on it, and it's not my main emphasis. But I did do a lot of sled work back in the day. But I had a homemade sled. Well, actually, it wasn't homemade. Well, it was a home variation of a sled. What I took was an old toboggan, like for snow sled, toboggan snow sled, and I had one. And what I used to do is I would load it up with cinder blocks, 40-pound cinder block bricks. And that's what I would stack in the toboggan. And then I would drag that. So I would, get a strap and put it around my waist and drag it, or I would row with it, and I used to do this when I was living over at my parents' house at the time. And they had a great big garden, like an acre of land, like just acre of grass. So I used to be dragging the sled back and forth across the grass, loaded up with cinder blocks, and that would be my sled work. I would literally drag that all around the backyard, right? So, I mean, that's an option. If you have access to literally a snow sled, a toboggan or something like that, you could load that up with weight and just drag it across the ground, especially if it's grass. Because if it's grass, I mean, you're not going to scuff the bottom out of it and it'll last forever. Whereas if you're dragging it across asphalt or concrete or something, I mean, eventually it's going to wear through. But in my case, where I was dragging it across grass, I mean, it never damaged the toboggan. And I mean, I still got in a great workout because there's lots of resistance dragging the heavy sled across the grass. And I mean, you can do a lot of different exercises, dragging it forwards, dragging it backwards, like you can do different, like drag it and row with it at the same time. There's all kinds of different. Go on YouTube and search for sled workouts. You'll see all kinds of different variations, but there's ways to make that work without, going out and buying a proper sled, if you will. Even though that you can do that, but I mean, they can rack up like hundreds and hundreds of dollars depending on the name and the quality and where you get it shipped in from and blah, blah, blah. I mean, when it comes to gym equipment, especially when you're getting commercial grade equipment, I mean, it can add up. But for something as simple as that, you can make your own homemade variations. Pretty simple for sure. What else we got there? We have Dan joining in. We have Eagle-Eye John joining in. Eagle-Eye John says he likes my chair. Thank you. It's whatever one they had at Costco. It was on sale at the time. That's where I got mine too. Shannon's joining in. Saying barbell row, T-bar row, chest supported row, or seated cable row. Which one do you think is best? All of the above. There's pros and cons to all of those. And from a practical point of view, if you're just getting started with working out, it really doesn't matter which you choose because they're all working the same major muscles. They're all rowing. So it's still all hitting, the back, the lats, the rhomboids, the traps, spinal erectors, your biceps, forearms, it's working the same muscles, right? So you can use any rowing variation that you want. From a practical point of view, I'll kind of break down some of the differences for you. Chest supported row. If you have lower back issues and you want to be extra cautious of the lower back, then the chest supported row would be an ideal situation for that because you're not placing that stress on the lower back like you would with a bent over barbell row, right? So if for people with lower back problems, chest supported row would be a nice alternative. If you find you have a tendency to swing and cheat and heave the weight, as in like if you're doing barbell rows and you tend to jerk and use a lot of leg drive, then a chest supported row is good there because it's a stricter variation, right? It's almost like a preacher curl for biceps in that sense. Like you can't use your back and swing the weight when you're doing preacher curls. The chest supported row, same thing. You can't use leg drive and bring in a lot of extra muscles when you're doing chest supported row because it minimizes the momentum in the cheating. So that's another plus for the chest supported row. The bent over barbell row, that's great because again, now you're engaging more muscle. You're actually engaging your lower back and you're actually using your hips, glutes, and hamstrings and all those muscles of the lower body to balance and stabilize yourself. So they're coming in like in a static contraction supporting situation, more core engagement, especially throughout the lower back spinal erectors. But again, there's that tendency where when the weight gets heavy, a lot of people end up heaving and jerking and using leg drive to complete it. Not necessarily a bad thing, but you want to minimize the cheating. And if you are going to cheat, make sure that you've completed as many good reps as you can first before you incorporate any cheat reps. Like there is a time and a place for cheating, but you want to use it almost like a self spot, if you will. Like once you've already hit failure with good, perfect, strict form, then if you throw in a couple little cheating reps at the end, it's usually not that big a deal as long as it's done safely and under control. A T-bar row is very similar to the bent over barbell row, but the advantage of a T-bar row is you don't have to bend over as far, because the angle of the T-bar when you're rowing, you can basically like bend over at a 45-degree angle and still get that same rowing motion. So a lot of people find the T-bar row more comfortable because you don't have to bend over as far at the waist, and you're still engaging your lower back and spinal erectors for stabilizing yourself, but you can do so in a more upright position. So it's a bit easier to breathe, not as much strain on the lower back, and you're in a more upright body position. So that's another variation. And it just, it feels different because you're pulling and rowing at an angle versus just straight up and down against gravity. The cable row, another great variation. The thing with the cable row, it's usually easier to perform a cable row than it is a barbell row. One nice feature of again is your body is perfectly upright. Now you're rowing, the cable horizontally, so it's easier to breathe. It's easier on your body. There's less blood pressure issues because when you're bent over in a barbell row, sometimes it's harder to get enough air in your body when you're in that bent over position. Whereas with the seated cable row, now you're more upright, so maybe easier to breathe and easier to focus on your technique more because your body's in that upright position. So for beginners, I would probably recommend, the cable row would probably be a good one to start with. But for advanced lifters, like, you can go through all those. There's a time and a place for all of them, and you can really. It's not that one is better, worse, right, or wrong. It really depends on the situation and what you want to do. So, like I said, I just kind of went over a brief overview of some of the pros and cons of the different variations, but they all work the same muscles. So hopefully that helps. If you have any more questions about what I'm sharing here, feel free to send me a message or whatever. Like, I got my email address in the description of this video. So if you want to reach out to me, if you got any questions or anything else you want to elaborate on, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to help you out. Emma's joining in. We have Jennifer's joining in. Will Roman pulls make my back bigger? Roman pulls. I'm not familiar with Roman pulls. You mean like a Romanian deadlift? But as far as Roman pulls, I can't say I'm familiar with that exercise. I know I could Google search it and see what it is, but frig it. You got me curious now. I'm going to have to open up Google and do a search for it. What's a Roman pull? Right? I don't claim to know it all. I've never heard of this before. All right. I just did a search for Roman pulls, and I'm getting like door handles, and I'm getting what else? The next Roman pulls. I don't know what the frick a Roman pull is. Seriously. I just did a search. I'm getting Roman drawer handles, rectangular drawer. You got me stumped. You got me stumped. I don't know what a Roman pull is, and I'm Google searching, and even Google doesn't know what a Roman pull is unless we're talking about door handles or drawer handles. Please elaborate. I'm stumped. There. Usually when I do a Google search, I find out exactly what it is you're talking about, but unless you're looking for a drawer handle, I can't help you. Literally, for those of you watching right now, if you do a search for Roman pulls and see if you get drawer handles, that's what came up with for me. Literally, drawer handles, like these things, drawer handles. Anyway, moving on. Eagle Eye John says, do wrist curls, reverse curls, and any exercise target forearms good for your grip strength? Yes and no. It mostly is working the forearm extensors or the forearm flexors when you're doing wrist curls and reverse curls. So you are building up the muscles of the forearms, but it's not directly grip related. If you want to build up grip strength, you really need to focus on gripping exercises. So things such as hand grippers, that's a direct grip exercise. That's the one I would definitely recommend, right? Heavy grips, hand grippers, right? That's a direct grip exercise. Even simple stuff like hanging from a pull-up bar, right? Just grab a pull-up bar and hang until your grip gives out, right? Farmer's walk, another great grip exercise. Any type of exercise like that. Plate pinches, where you take maybe like a couple weight plates, put them smooth side out and pinch them. So, I mean, you're building up your pinch grip strength. That's another great exercise. These are things that directly work your grip. That's going to strengthen your grip. Now, again, indirectly, you will build it up with, wrist curls and reverse wrist curls and stuff like that. But to truly maximize grip strength, you want to do direct grip work. And that's a big plus. If you want some help with that, I actually have an ebook. It's one that I put together a while back. Let me see if I can find it for you here now. We're really digging through the archives here today. Shit, what's it now? Lee Hayward. I'm drawing a brain fart here. I'm going to have to do a Google search for it and see if I can find it. But it's a forearm guide, and it covers a lot of grip strength. Let me see if I can find it for you. Let me see, and I'll post the link there. Shit, where's it to? Can't find it. I am drawing a blank here. Where the heck is that to? I can't find it. I don't know. Anyway, instead of wasting time looking for that, it was an ebook guide that I put together, and I can't think of the link for the life of me now where I put that to, because it was one that I had listed on my website years ago, and I'm drawing a blank to now where I have that to. Oh well. Anyway, if I'll put this invite out there. If anybody wants it, it's a guide. It's a PDF report that I put out. It was called Huge Freaky Forearms. Right? I used to come up with the cool names back in the day. Huge Freaky Forearms. It was a report that I wrote. Oh my God, at least 10 years ago. I don't know where it is off the top of my head, but if I can certainly find it after this video chat's over. If anybody would like a copy of it, all right, feel free to send me an email. And again, I have my email in the description below this video. So if you are watching this and you want a copy of that ebook, send me an email and I'll forward you a copy when I find it. But I can't remember where it's to, what link it is off the top of my head. If you do a Google search for Lee Hayward forearms, you might find it, but I can't find it off the top of my head. Anyway, moving on. Let's see. We have YT. Do you eyeball or determine 150 grams of protein without a food scale? I.e. 150 grams of chicken breast, beef, etc. Well, it's kind of hard to eyeball exactly 150 grams. I mean, if you want to know if you're getting 150 grams, the easiest way is 150 grams. But do you need to weigh every meal to know that you're getting an adequate serving of protein? No, you don't have to. Like, you can eyeball it in that sense. Like, ballpark, like a chicken breast, the standard single chicken breast is like a good serving of protein for most people. Now, granted, some chicken breasts are a little bigger, some are a little smaller, but like overall, like that would be a good serving of protein for the average person. So a general rule of thumb, if you're looking for just eyeballing portion sizes, a serving of protein should be about the size of the palm of your hand. So again, like a typical chicken breast is about the size of the palm of your hand. Like that's a good serving size to look for. But if you're like just eyeballing meat, chicken, fish, whatever, that's what you can go for. Like a can of tuna fish. Like if you look at how much tuna is in a can of tuna fish, it's about the size of the palm of your hand, give or take. So like that's a good serving size. So you can eyeball it and still be in the ballpark. Like you don't have to be spot on unless you're like really meticulous and you want to hit your calories and macros to the nth degree. Like you can be so meticulous to weigh and measure everything out, but it's okay to eyeball it and just focus on the habits as well. I usually just eyeball it and focus on the habits because I just know the way my body responds, and I focus on portion sizes if I want to make changes. But for someone who's learning nutrition and who's like, this is all new to them, like you've never ever tracked calories, macros, or anything like that, and this is all brand new, then I do recommend, breaking out the food scale, breaking out the measuring cups, getting MyFitnessPal or any sort of nutrition tracker, and actually learning what's in the food you eat. Like how much protein is in a typical chicken breast, like how much, carbohydrates are in a cup of oatmeal, like, what's a good source of fat, and how many calories am I consuming throughout the day. Like if you've never tracked any of that, then it's a good task to actually do it, because you'll learn so much about nutrition. But once you know it and you've been doing it so long that it starts to become redundant, like you just know you're going to eat the same type of foods and the same portions, and you kind of like, you got this stuff figured out, then you don't need to be such a slave to weighing and tracking and measuring, unless you really enjoy it. Like I know some people, they're like obsessive compulsive, and they just love tracking and recording numbers, and they're the bean counters of the world. They just love numbers. If you're one of those people and you actually really love it, then hey, by all means, keep doing it. If you enjoy it and it works for you, by all means, do it. But if you hate just taking the time and effort to weigh and track and measure and calculate everything, you don't have to be a slave for it forever. Like use it as a tool to help teach you about nutrition. But once you start to know it and it becomes redundant, and you're eating the same foods over and over again, and you're entering in the same numbers in MyFitnessPal over and over again, and you're like, I know what I'm eating. I kind of know what my calories and my macros are. Then you can kind of let it go and just focus on the habits from that point on. And that's where I am. I focus on the habits, right? So I manipulate my nutrition based on how I feel and based on my portion sizes. And I don't really get too, overwhelmed with the food scale and MyFitnessPal and all that. In fact, I haven't weighed, tracked, or counted calories in years. Like even when I did my most recent bodybuilding show, like I got ripped and I got my leanest contest condition ever, and I never tracked calories because from 30 years of doing this, I just know how my body responds to different foods. But for someone who's never done it before, well, you need to go through that process. What else we got there? We've got the last fake natty saying, keep it up, and just sponsored the chat. I appreciate your support. I will keep it up. Thank you much. And at least we got one last fake natty out there. Gotta love the usernames. Who else we have? Tommy is joining in. Welcome. We have Ruel joining in. Getting your names mixed up there. Ruel. He says, Lee, I just finished the 4th of 4 10-minute workouts throughout my workday. These really helped me get back in the saddle movement-wise. Many thanks. Awesome. I know. I believe you were asking about this last week when we had our video chat. So I'm glad that you are incorporating the mini workouts. This was a game changer for me. Like back a few years ago when I had let myself go, got the quote-unquote dad bod, and was really struggling, like new father, newborn baby at home, not sleeping throughout the night, just mentally and physically burnt out. I didn't want to be going to the gym for 2-hour workouts and all this kind of stuff. So I utilized mini workouts, and I'm talking like literally 10-minute workouts that I would do at home in my spare time. Like, if throughout the day, like, hey, I got 10 minutes, I can go for a little walk around the block. Boom, I can get that done. Hey, I got 10 minutes, I can do a little circuit of push-ups and squats. Or I got 10 minutes, I can go down and do a little circuit with dumbbells or resistance bands or whatever in the home gym. Like, I might not be able to do a full workout, it might not be perfect, but I can do something. Like I got 10 minutes or I got 20 minutes. I got these little blocks of time. And I used to have the mental block that, hey, if I don't have an hour to work out, then I don't have time to work out. And I mean, that's a crock of shit, because, you don't need an hour to work out. Like if you've got 10 minutes, then what's stopping you from working out for 10 minutes? Like most people look at it, well, I got a 10-minute break, so I'm going to scroll on my phone for 10 minutes, or I'm going to watch TV for 10 minutes, or I'm going to, I don't know, pick my nose for 10 minutes. Like, why not exercise for 10 minutes, right? You got time. So, I mean, like, even if it's only a little burst is better than nothing. Something's always better than nothing. And if you start stacking that up throughout the day, you'll be amazed at how many little blocks of exercise you can get in. Like in Ruel's case, he did 4 10-minute workouts today. So if I said, hey, you got to work out for a minimum of 40 minutes today, he'd probably say, well, I don't have time, right? I don't have 40 minutes. But if I said, okay, do little 10-minute workouts, like 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes on your lunch break, 10 minutes after work, 10 minutes before you go to bed, all of a sudden now he just did a 40-minute workout, but he broke it up into little mini chunks, and he still got the same exercise in, and it's working. And like, that's what I did when I was really struggling with this. I let go of the mental block of, I need an hour, right? If I don't have time for an hour, then I don't have time to work out. And I said, no, I have 10 minutes. I can do something, even if it's just put on the sneakers and go for a walk around the block or anything. Hit the floor, do a set of push-ups, do a set of squats, do a set of crunches, do something. Hold a abdominal plank. Hey, you want a killer 10-minute workout? Try holding an abdominal plank for 10 minutes, right? You'll have the ultimate 10-minute ab workout right there. Like, it doesn't have to be crazy. It just has to be something consistent and good enough, but good enough consistently, and something's better than nothing. So again, good job, Ruel. Glad to see you taking advantage of it. Emma's joining in. Says, when you train arms, how do you get the big bicep peak? Some guys have big arms but lack definition, whereas others have big arms with really visible defined peak. All right, first off, the shape of your muscles, whether you have high-peaked biceps, flat biceps, you really can't change the genetic shape of your muscle. It all has to do with how the tendons insert. Now, what you can do to change the shape of your muscle is, one, make it bigger or lose the body fat that's covering it. So a lot of times if people are bulking and they got some excess fat, like even if they're muscular, but they got high body fat percentage, think of like football linemen, strongmen, lumberjacks, I don't know, like just big, husky, burly men, right? Okay, they got a lot of muscle, but they also got a lot of fat that's covering the muscle. So they're big, but you don't see the definition. Like they take their shirt off, you don't see line separation and detail, you just see bulk, right? Just sheer mass. If that's the case, then losing the body fat's the single most important thing. You lose the body fat, and then you're going to be able to see the muscle definition and detail underneath. But assuming you've got all that done, right? You've built the muscle size, you've lost the body fat, and you've got all that taken care of. The genetic shape of your muscle is that's what it is. It's genetics. Like you can't change their muscle insertions or whatever. So some people got really high biceps, some people got flat biceps, and you can't really do anything about it. I'll give you a prime example. Do a search on Google Images for Arnold Schwarzenegger front double bicep, and then do a search for Sergio Oliva front double bicep. Now, both of these guys are former Mr. Olympias back in the pumping iron days, back in the golden era of bodybuilding. Sergio had flat biceps, like huge, but they weren't the high peak like Arnold. Arnold's got these massive, really high peaked biceps when he was in his peak back in the day, where Sergio had the just the bigger, flatter biceps. And there's no amount of curls or training or isolation or whatever that you can do to change that. That's just the genetic shape of the muscles. And if you have longer tendon insertions that goes closer to the elbow joint, you're going to have the longer, flatter biceps. If you have the shorter tendon insertions, so there's like a bit of a gap between the bicep and the elbow, as in what Arnold had, then it's going to look higher and peaked. So that it's really a genetic thing. Once you've maximized your development through training and you've lost the body fat through diet and cardio and all that. So that's all you can do. Like you can maximize what you have through weight training to build the muscle, through diet and cardio to lose the body fat. But once that's done, the rest is genetics. And you can't really change the shape or the way the muscles look after that. Tommy's saying, I need to remove my stomach and relocate it to my legs. You would look awfully weird if you did that. Just saying. But I'm assuming you've got big belly, skinny legs, right? I'm assuming that's what you mean. You technically don't want to move your stomach to your legs. That would just look weird. Neil's joining in saying, thanks. Have a great weekend, everyone. All right. Over and out, Neil. Take care. Have a good one. Stephen Sims is joining. Can you discuss proper breathing technique when lifting? Yes, I can. And in fact, what I'll do instead to make this even more beneficial, I have a video that covers the 3 types of breathing when lifting. And I'm going to find that. If you do a search for Lee Hayward breathing, it might pop up. Proper way to breathe when lifting weights. I think that's what it is. Let me just see. Come on, my internet connection is slow. Breathing technique. That's not the one. I made a few videos on this, so I'm trying to. There's one video in particular I'm looking for, and And where is it? Okay, let's do a YouTube search. So if we go to the YouTube machine, obviously do this after the video chat's over, right? But let me see. If I go to Lee Hayward, breathing, let's see. There we go. Okay, it's 3 breathing techniques to use when lifting weights. That's the name of the video. I'm going to get the link for it for you here. Shut up there. Get that YouTube ad popping off there. All right, I'm going to type it into breathing technique video. Boom. I just typed it into the video chat there, so you can go check that out. But I will summarize it very quickly here. There are 3 techniques for breathing, and it depends on what type of exercise you're doing, and the intensity of that exercise will depend on the type of breathing technique you use, right? It's not the one size fits all, which a lot of people, like most trainers, you ask your Joe Blow personal trainer at the gym, and they'll tell you, you breathe in when you're lowering the weight and you breathe out when you're lifting. So you breathe in, on the eccentric, and you breathe out on the concentric. When you're exerting yourself, you breathe out. For most exercises, and most of the time, that's pretty general good advice, But it depends on the type of movement, and it also depends on the volume of repetitions and everything else. If you're doing higher repetitions and high volume exercise, you may actually want to reverse it. And I'll give you an analogy. Like, think of if you're doing the rowing machine at the gym, like the ergometer, Concept 2 rower. As you contract your body, that would be an ideal time to breathe out, because as your legs and your arms and your torsos come together, visualize doing the rowing machine, right? Your legs come in and your torso comes together. You compress your body. As you compress your body, it's good to let the air out. And then as you expand your body, let the air in. Almost like an accordion, right? Compress, expand, right? You can use it. And this works well for high repetition exercises. So like if you're doing really high rep squats, like I know some people do like the Hindu squats or high rep squats, you can actually use this and kind of get into a cadence where you're using your breathing and the repetitions and you're working your body as a unit. So like as you contract, you breathe out. As you expand, you breathe in, just like an accordion. Visualize the accordion analogy. This is for low intensity, high repetition. When you're doing high intensity, low repetition, you want to reverse it, because you're going to use the air as tension to help create some power in the lift, in the exercise. So if I was doing a powerlifting squat or even just a heavy bodybuilding set of squats, I would actually breathe in as I'm lowering down, right? Because then I want to use that air as tension to help me rebound out of the bottom. And then if I was doing a heavy 1 rep max, I would actually hold my air. So like if I'm doing a heavy bench press, 1 rep max, or heavy squat or whatever, you have the weight locked out, take several breaths, to oxygenate your system and everything else. And then you would hold the air in, blow your torso out, like blow your belly out, and create all this tension by holding your air in. And then as you hold the air in, then you would squat down and you would actually use that air to create tension to help you rebound out of the bottom. And this is a very powerful technique. And you watch competitive powerlifters, like you watch anybody doing like a 1 rep max squat, you'll see this is what they'll do. They'll take several deep breaths, hold the air in, and then use that air to help create tension. So as they squat down, they're literally rebounding with that air in their system to help create tension. And then as they're lifting up, then they may breathe out and exert it, like as their body's straightening back out again. But again, the 3 techniques, the general rule of thumb for moderate intensity exercise, high reps, high bodybuilding reps, like 10 reps or more, you would do breathe out as you exert, breathe in as you lower. For really high reps, as in like cardio conditioning, the Concept 2 rower, or very high rep body weight squats, like you're doing 100 reps of squats or more, use the accordion analogy. Breathe out as you contract, breathe in as you expand. And then for powerlifting, 1 rep max, breathe in, hold the air, and use that air as tension to rebound out of the bottom of the lift. And that video that I just posted there in the chat, that explains this in more detail. And I think it even has an examples, like where you can see this on video, some of the different examples of it. But that's the summary of the 3 ways that you breathe when exercising. And then again, it depends on how you're lifting. Like, it depends on the intensity, the exercise, and what it is that you're trying to achieve, right? So that's why it's not always a one size fits all answer. And that's one thing I find frustrating, is a lot of times when people ask questions like this in most situations, you always get the cookie cutter one size fits all. Like, oh, everybody got to do this, everybody got to do that, right? Like, what's the best way to lose weight? Oh, go keto. No, it's not. It might work for somebody, but it's not best for everybody. Or, like, it's a pet peeve of mine when people just throw out these random answers, expecting it to be the right answer for everybody. Like, no, it depends on the situation. What else we got? Can one deadlift every workout? Like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, deadlift 3 times a week? Technically, yes, you can do that. That's from YT. You could, but it all depends on the volume of the exercise and how hard you're training and everything else. Like, if you're doing low volume, yeah, you can certainly deadlift every workout. Like, a lot of powerlifters will actually, like a basic powerlifting program might be squat, bench, deadlift 3 times a week. Just focusing on those 3 core power lifts and do that 3 times a week. I mean, I've gone through training phases like that, but you got to look at the bigger picture of your overall training volume, how many exercises you're doing in total, how many sets you're doing in total. Like, if you're doing a very abbreviated program, like squats, bench, deadlift, and you just want to prioritize those 3 exercises, you could literally do those 3 exercises 3 times a week and make great gains with it. I've done that myself. I've gone through training phases of just doing that. Like, I might take like a 6 to 8 week block and just say, I'm just going to prioritize these exercises, squat, bench, deadlift, and just get really good at them, right? Just drill those exercises in. And I've done that. But if you're trying to do like a full on back workout with pull-ups and rows and good mornings and all kinds of different variations plus deadlifts, and then do that 3 times a week, then that could be like overtraining. So it really depends on the overall picture and how much volume you're doing for that muscle group over the course of the week. And of course, it depends on your fitness level, right? For a beginner, like, that would probably be way too much. But for someone who's advanced and conditioned for it, they could probably certainly handle it. And again, especially if they factor in the total volume for the week. What else? What do we got here? John is saying, type in Roman pulls exercises and see what you get. Okay, because I said I typed in Roman pull and I was getting weird stuff. So what someone else typed in? Someone says they see Roman reigns in Roman pulls. All right, okay. This was one of the questions earlier. So I'm just, all right, for the hell of it, I'm going to just do this, right? Roman pulls exercise and see what comes up. Here we go. Go to the Google machine. Mr. Google. Roman pulls exercise. What the frig is this? All right, go to Google Images. Let's see what I got. I see a Roman chair, which is basically like, hyperextension in reverse. I see your chair leg raises. I see Roman chair exercises. I see gymnastic rings. I see people doing hyperextensions on a Roman chair. Some people call the hyperextension bench a Roman chair. So, I mean, I don't know if that's what you're referring to. But I still don't see Roman pulls. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. If I am, email me. Email me. My email address, leeh@leehayward.com. What the heck is a Roman pull? I've never done a Roman pull. I never heard of a Roman pull before now. So maybe it's a pull-up variation. I don't know. But I'm on Google, and even Google doesn't know what it is. And if Google doesn't know what it is, then what chance do I have of knowing what it is? Heck. All right. Moving back to our video chat. Where else we? Where was I to? I lost my place. I lost my place when I was looking for Roman pulls. Del Solar. Hi, Lee. I'm a great fan of your 6x6 programs, and they've helped me a lot back in time. Can you please make a short cons pro summary comparing them with compound calisthenics for senior ages. What? So the 6x6 program, I didn't invent that. If you're referring to the 6 sets of 6 reps, that was a Vince Gironda thing. I just piggybacked and shared a set and rep pattern that he recommended. And again, I'm just thinking off the top of my head because like I've put out a lot of stuff. Like I got over 1,000 videos on YouTube, so trying to remember each and every one of them is a bit challenging at times. But I think the ones you're referring to, the 6x6, was doing 6 sets of 6 with 15 seconds rest in between. So it's a very condensed form of training. So like your first set feels like a warm-up set, right? You just, hey, I just did 6 reps. This is nothing. And then you rest 15 seconds, and then you do another set. Okay, it's a little harder, but still easy. Third set. Okay, this is I'm starting to work a little bit. And then by the time you get through all 6 sets of 6, like you are working your ass off by the end because of the cumulative fatigue that builds up from the multiple sets and the short rest periods. Right. So, I mean, it's a cool little, training strategy that you can use to just change up your set and rep pattern. And I didn't invent it. Right. I mean, I just copied it from Vince Gironda, and chances are he probably copied it from somebody else. Right. Like very, very little stuff is actually invented anymore. It's just people reinventing the wheel over and over again. Like that's the way workouts are. Like all the stuff we're talking about now when it comes to like diet and exercise and everything else, for the most part, like this stuff is old as dirt. Like this has been people have been doing this shit for like over 100 years. Like nobody's inventing anything new for the most part. It's just we're reinventing stuff that was done eons and generations ago. And when it's new to you, it feels new. But a lot of this stuff, there's nothing new about this, right? People have been lifting weights, for over 100 years. And people have been doing physical fitness for thousands of years, right? Like so, this ain't new. Put it that way. But anyway, the pros to that style of training, the whole 6x6, is you don't have to lift heavy weights to get a lot of muscle fatigue. So by the time you get to your 6th set of 6 reps, you could be using a warm-up weight, and that will feel like max effort weight. So it's great for getting a lot of muscle stimulation, but not a lot of heavy weight. So like if you're trying to work around joint pain, or you don't want to lift heavy weight from an injury risk prevention type of thing, it's a great style of training. So it's very safe in that sense, right? Safe from very low risk of muscle tears or joint or tendon ligament damage, anything like that from pushing yourself with heavy weight and low reps. So that's one of the pros. Also has a cardiovascular element to it because again, you're keeping the sets and the rest between sets short. So I mean, you keep your heart rate elevated. So it has that cardiovascular element to it. So it's a great training program. The only downside to it is if you are trying to train for max power, you're not going to get max power with short rest periods in between sets. Like if you want to really increase your 1 rep max and put that maximum tension on the muscles, you need long rest periods. And that's why if you look at competitive powerlifters or people who are training through power phases, they take long rest periods. And like if you look at the extreme, like strongman competitors, they take really freaking long rest periods. Like you when you're watching like World's Strongest Man and this kind of stuff like on TV or on YouTube videos, like you're just seeing the action scenes. But in between all those max effort attempts, there could be a 10-minute or a 15-minute rest period between. Like these guys are not just going bang, 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 set after set, maxing out. They exert themselves 100%, but then they take big, long rest recovery phases in between to recover and to basically mentally and physically prepare for the next all-out effort. I remember several years back, we had a strongman exhibition. We had Magnus for Magnuson. Who else was it? Some of the up-and-coming strongman from Iceland. Like where I live in Newfoundland, like we're not that geographically far from Iceland. And some of the guys who actually work at one of our metal recycling plants, he's from Iceland. In fact, the guy who owns our metal recycling plant is from Iceland. So he actually closed off the metal recycling plant, set it up as like a strongman course, and brought over a whole bunch of strongmen from Iceland to put on an exhibition a few years ago. And I went to watch it live. I mean, we had a huge crowd of people there. And to see the strongman exhibition live, like, I mean, it was crazy to see the events and the feats of strength that they were doing. But then they would do an event. I mean, it was awesome to watch. But then there'd be like this 10, 15-minute intermission while the guys were resting and recovering and getting ready for the next one. So it's not like fast paced. Like they take massive long rest periods, and they need it in order to generate that kind of, extreme max effort force. So if your goal is to generate max effort force, you're not going to achieve it with a 6x6 type of training program where you have short rest periods between sets. It's good for like cardiovascular conditioning, muscular endurance conditioning, fat burning, calorie burning, all that kind of stuff. But it's not going to build max strength. So that would be the con to it. But if you're not interested in max strength and power training, then you can certainly use it. And for seniors, I definitely recommend it, because most seniors are not out there trying to do 1 rep maxes, right? So it's a great style of training for most people. All right, we've actually been going for over an hour, so I'm going to get ready and clue this up very soon. But I'm just going to skim through and see if there's any other questions I want to finish off with. Can you recommend things to eat with coffee? I usually have a peanut butter sandwich, but I like to mix it up. I'll tell you something you can do with your coffee, and it tastes really darn good. Protein powder. Like literally, pour up a cup of coffee, just let it cool a little bit, and then put in like a scoop of vanilla or chocolate protein powder, and then get a milk frother and whip that stuff up. And man, that tastes good. In fact, do a Google search or a YouTube search for Lee Hayward high protein coffee. I've got videos showing how to make this, and I shared this with a lot of my coaching students, and they're like, man, this stuff, like they kind of had hesitation about it, but once they try it, they're like, man, this stuff is freaking awesome. So you can get your coffee and get a shot of protein at the same time. Be much better than peanut butter sandwiches, especially if your goal is fat loss, right? Peanut butter sandwiches are not the food to eat if your goal is fat loss. I can guarantee you that. What else we got? Pyramid training or straight sets? It depends, right? It depends on what you're training for. But I do like pyramid in terms of progressively heavier warm-up sets. Even if you were doing straight sets, I would always recommend doing some warm-up sets beforehand. But as far as pyramid versus straight sets, like, you can make progress with both. It really depends on, it's not one is right or wrong, good or bad. It's really, what is it you're trying to achieve? Typically, from a powerlifting point of view, most people kind of do pyramid sets because it works well. But from a strength and conditioning or like a bodybuilding point of view, a lot of times you do straight sets. And it also depends on the exercise. Like bigger, heavier compound lifts, pyramid sets probably work better. For more of the isolation exercises, just doing straight sets would probably be fine. But again, it's one of those questions where both work. We have Sherryard joining in from Ottawa. Is it bad to do deadlifts the day after back day? My hamstring day is one day after my back day, and I do deadlifts on hammy day. It really depends on how you're feeling, right? I mean, if you try it and see. But deadlifts work well on a back day, but I mean, I know a lot of people will incorporate deadlift variations on a leg day as well. So my advice, try it and see how it works. If you find that your lower back is still having that delayed onset muscle soreness, or you don't feel you can give it a good effort, then just rearrange your split so that you have some more rest days in between. Or rearrange your exercise order so that you're training hamstrings on back day. You could do that as well. What else? I'm kind of skimming through here now because I want to answer any few questions before I clue it up. On a 1,700 calorie diet, how much should be carbs? If you're looking for like a simple one-size-fits-all generic answer, 1/3 of your calories from protein, 1/3 of your calories from carbohydrates, and 1/3 of your calories from fat. That would be a good starting point. Then you can manipulate it based on how your body responds in real time. But if you're looking for like just a general, like, where do I get started type of thing, that's what I'd recommend. Well-balanced diet. And when I say 1/3 of your calories, I'm not talking 1/3 of your macros. I'm talking 1/3 of your calories, because fat calories have 9 calories per gram. Carbs and protein have 4 calories per gram. So like, just to throw out some numbers, it doesn't mean you eat like 100 grams of protein, 100 grams of carbs, and 100 grams of fat. That's not equal ratio. That's equal ratio in weight, but it's not equal ratio in calories, because 100 grams of protein has 400 calories. 100 grams of fat has 900 calories. So you got to look at the calorie ratios, not the weight ratios. But to give you, again, the base, a third of your calories from protein, a third of your calories from carbs, and a third of your calories from fat. So an equal split in all the three macros. And that's a good place to start. And then, of course, you can manipulate it based on your goals and how your body responds. But for most people, that's a darn good starting point. Are protein powders good for health on the long term? Yes. I've been taking protein powders for over 30 years, and I consider myself to be quite healthy. And when I get my blood work and checkups done, I'm healthy. Yeah. Lee, 2 low sets, not reps. You won't grow much. Is that right? The so-called 12 sets for larger muscles. 2 low sets, not reps, won't grow much. You know, I'm going to just blow the whistle on this. Like, anything you do in a progressive overload fashion will work, whether it's high sets, low sets, high reps, low reps. Like, as long as you're putting more stress and demand on the muscle and you're causing it to perform more than it's used to, you can stimulate growth. Now, once you get to the advanced stages, you know, like elite level powerlifters or elite level bodybuilders and stuff like that, that's when you really need to fine tune stuff. But for the average Joe who's just getting started, you know, in the beginner phase, anything is better than nothing. So like sitting on your ass doing nothing versus doing high rep sets, the high rep sets is better than sitting on your ass doing nothing. Low rep sets are better than sitting on your ass doing nothing. So like if you're in the beginner phases and you're just getting started, it all works. The only time you really need to get into manipulating the variables is when you're super consistent. Like your training is consistent, your nutrition is consistent, your sleep habits are consistent, your lifestyle choices are consistent. Like, and everything is boom, boom, boom. And you've come to the point where you truly hit a plateau based on performance. Like most people, and I'm willing to bet like 9 out of 10 of the people listening to this video now, when they hit a plateau, it's not a true performance plateau, meaning they've maxed out their diet and they've maxed out their training and now they need some advanced strategies. They hit a plateau because they're not consistent enough plateau. It's their on and off again plateau, or life got in the way plateau, or I missed workouts this week plateau, or I cheated on my diet plateau, or that type of plateau, meaning you're not maxing things out. But once you, like, very few people get to this stage, and only, like, you know, the most committed, the most serious, dedicated people that I know ever get to the true plateaus of, man, I've been spot on with my training, my nutrition. I haven't missed a workout in 2 years. Right? I haven't cheated on my diet. I haven't missed a meal. I get 8 hours of sleep every single night. Like, everything is boom, 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 spot on. And then, you know, they hit a plateau at that level. Okay, now we need to get in and start manipulating. Okay, like, where can we manipulate the workouts, the sets, the reps? How can we, you know, provide some unique muscle stimulation and all that kind of stuff? But very few people get to that stage. Like, I rarely get to that stage. Like, when I hit a plateau, it's usually because I'm not as consistent. And then I just look and I say, yeah, I should have been more consistent with the workouts or the diet or this and that and the other thing, or I haven't been getting enough sleep, or, like, it's very rare that someone hits a plateau because they don't have the ideal set and rep pattern. Like, it's usually, you know, the other things, you know, you're not consistent enough, whether it's training, nutrition, sleep habits, lifestyle choices, or whatever. So honestly, it doesn't really matter, right? You can make progress with higher volume of reps, lower volume of reps, higher volume of sets, lower volume. As long as you're training in a progressive overload fashion and you're doing so consistently, you can make it work. What else we got there? Robert did a search for Roman pull, and he got the Roman chair exercises. Yeah, I hear it. That's what I got when I did my last search. Let's see what else. Can you build muscle with just body weight and calisthenics? Yes, absolutely. Right? You will certainly build a lot of muscle. Look at a gymnast. Like, the average gymnast has a very muscular build, strong, athletic, and for the most part, they're not doing weight training. They're doing body weight and calisthenic exercises. So it certainly works. In your opinion, what's the best diet for health and longevity? A well-balanced one, right? Equal ratios of protein, carbs, and fat. Eating protein and veggies and natural unprocessed foods. Well-balanced. Avoid the fad diet crap. Don't go thinking what you need to cut out. Like, I'll just finish off with this and then we'll clue it up. a lot of people are always looking for the quick fix when it comes to diet. Like, oh, well, maybe if I cut out macronutrients, or if I cut out food groups, or I do this, or I do that, or I only eat in a certain feeding window, or whatever, that's going to be the secret to health and fat loss and everything else. It's a no, well balanced and sustainable. If you can't stick to an eating plan for life, and then it's not sustainable. Like, you have to be able to enjoy the process, enjoy the way you eat, nourish and fuel your body and not deprive it. That's the secret to sustainability and health and longevity. Like, this idea, like, oh, I'm going to go keto and I'm going to cut out all my carbs, or I'm going to go vegan and I'm going to cut out all my animal protein, or I'm going to go carnivore and cut out all my vegetables, or I'm going to go intermittent fasting, I'm only going to eat one meal a day, or I'm going to, like, that's not sustainable. Well balanced. I always keep coming back to this, just a sustainable, holistic, well balanced approach. And when you do that, you actually fuel the body and you don't deprive it. Like, I stay lean by staying full, because I'm filling up on so much natural, unprocessed foods, the protein and the veggies and the complex carbs, that I stay full and satiated on that. Then I don't have as much room for the not so good stuff afterwards. So I'm staying lean by staying full, versus the mentality that a lot of people take is like, well, what do I cut out? What do I eliminate? What do I avoid? And they have this deprivation mentality, where I have this abundance mentality. Like, what do I need to fill up on to stay fuel and nourished, so that I don't end up craving all the junk and the crap and, steering off the track from the diet. So that's the secret, is something that you can sustain and enjoy long term. If it's a quick fix, or if it's like something you're going to suffer through for the short term, like New Year's is rolling around and people say like, oh, I'm going on that crazy diet and I'm going to go on a cut in January and I'm going to be ripped by February. No, you're not. It ain't going to work. Because if you can't sustain it and enjoy it for years on end, or for the rest of your life, then it's only temporary. Like, if you think, well, I'm going to go keto for the next 3 weeks, or whatever, I'm going to fast, or I'm going to do this. Like, no, it's not going to work, right? It has to be something you can enjoy and sustain day in, day out, week in, week out, year in, year out, for like a lifestyle. And if it's not, then it's only temporary. All right, I'm going to clue it up because it's getting late and my wife has a beautiful, healthy meal on the stove for us, and I'm going to go out and enjoy dinner with the family. Hopefully you enjoyed the video chat. I enjoyed doing it for you. And I will be back again same time next week. And actually, next week's going to be Black Friday. So I'll do a video chat then. So for my American friends, have yourself a happy Thanksgiving, and I'll talk to you next Friday. Take care. Over and out.